Well, it looks like Jim Crow Joe Biden is in trouble with the black vote. Look like Trump Trump is continuing to garner support for the black vote, and he basically recently been to the Bronx a month or so ago. He came here to Atlanta, and of course, it seemed like he is going to get it. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Thumbs up, thumbs up. ScrewTube had me on a permanent ban here. ScrewTube do not want me a part of the algorithm because I be talking about these good white folks. And so tonight, the Lawyers and Podcast Show basically is going to really be talking about Jim Crow Joe Biden and how Donald Trump would get 46% or more of the black vote in this election. So if we know that if Jim Crow Joe Biden win again, we know that they have cheated. Okay? We know that they have cheated. So tonight, the Lawyers and Podcast Show is going to be here for an hour and 30 minutes or more longer, talking to you about the presidential election, the 2024 election that's coming up in several months here. The Lawyers and Podcast Show basically is on tonight, and just basically we're going to get on to it here. The Democrats are losing the black vote. And welcome to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Welcome, everybody. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. ScrewTube had basically said that my other video that I put up yesterday, that it could not be monetized because of the music. And in fact, ScrewTube should know that I buy all my my music. And so I got licensed to carry all of the music that I play on this channel. So this is just another way for them to basically try to decrease my channel. But that's okay, because like I said, in several weeks, we're counting down to the platform of the new show on TikTok, and then we're going to have some stuff on other platforms. Spotify is also coming. And we're going to basically go out there, and we're not going to be shuffling and jiving, as Malcolm said. Man, we had a good discussion yesterday about Malcolm X there. I mean, the subject wasn't about Malcolm. It was just basically about some things that he said, because his birthday was May the 19th or something like that. And so I'm thinking that was his birthday. But something happened on May 19th regarding Malcolm X's birthday. I don't know if that was his birthday or the day he died, but it was basically, we were talking about the celebration in the black media about Malcolm. So speaking of Malcolm, I just wanted to throw that out there. So the new music of the Lawyers and Podcast Show, basically, like I said, it should be monetized because purchase the rights to the new music. ScrewTube basically do not want me to basically succeed, and they don't like for me to succeed. They trying to basically destroy my channel. They've already got me on like a warning to basically deactivate the channel. And ScrewTube is just trying to just destroy me. And so our Patreon is coming as well. I'll let y'all know that. But like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments. Today we're talking about Joe Biden. And if many of you know that the tax seasons just came around, and Joe Biden had taken millions of dollars of our tax money that we were supposed to get back to fund wars, to give to Israel, to give to these illegal immigrants. He's taken billions of dollars, I should say, billions, billions, and billions of dollars to give it to everybody else besides the people in America, and specifically the black people who have to put him in office. But now there's a different turnaround. You're starting to see the black community wake up. And as I said, 46%, I think Trump is going to get 46% of the black vote this time around. And we had told you in 2016 that Jim Crow Joe Biden basically should have even got into the White House, but they allege he won by 4,000 votes. And I'm still trying to basically, I don't even know if that's true or not. Okay. But then he does have a little bit of support there among some black people. The civil rights generation, of course, still support him. He's still going to these black colleges and the churches because that's who the people who he can confuse. But we on the grassroots, if we're going to vote, we're going to cast our vote for somebody who is not going to harm us. And Joe Biden and a lot of these Democrats, they have done nothing. They have a history of basically showing their ass towards the black community. The vote that we did for Joe Biden is a fuck you in the face because he did nothing for you. And he told the black community to kiss his ass in so many ways. And this is the reason why we're going to get this man out of office. I want to thank you for the likes, shares, and comments. We're a growing audience. Even though ScrewTube have us on the shadow ban, if you actually really look at the algorithm, once I look into it, it basically shows that more people, listen to me more than I thought. Okay, when I go inside to look at the reviews and the comments and remark, it's just that ScrewTube do not like to basically give me the props that I am due. And so you'll call me up, and then once I get the phone system, we'll have these white supremacists call me up, of course, and say, well, you just don't like us good white folks. All right, so we're talking about how Donald Trump is going to get 46% of the black vote this turnaround. And there was some serious arguments. See, the white liberal media think we are stupid. They're trying to basically insult us as if we basically are stupid and we don't know what's going on, talking about disinformation or misinformation. The black community, specifically black men, are not being miseducated by anybody. We understand, just like any other group understand, that you have to have tangible benefits in economics in order to survive. And what these white folks have been doing is they've been trying to basically keep us in a segmented labor market, as Amos Wilson taught us, and as I often say on this channel, so that we don't have an economic placement in America. And this has been their game plan. And this has been their game plan ever since we left slavery. Okay? And this is where their game plan was. You see? Ever since we left slavery. These white folks have been playing the same game, okay? And 150 years that it took us longer to basically figure out that it was a game, of course. We're finally waking up to look and see that we have to really dig into the background of these politicians. And so Joe Biden basically knows that every time he goes out in the public, nobody is listening to him. They're saying, F you, Joe. F you, Joe. They're saying that all across America. F you, Joe. Okay? Why? Because he even got white folks mad at him. He's taken billions and billions of taxpayers' dollars and giving it to people in Israel and fighting wars in Ukraine and give him billions and billions of dollars. And now he's saying, well, we can give money to Taiwan if China should invade it. Dude, the United States military is not where it is today. The United States military is not where it is today. Then he had hired all of these IRS executives, people, to start scrutinize our tax returns, and then are cutting hundreds of thousands of dollars off in our tax credits in order to fund this war. This man got people paying $6 or $7 at the gas tank per gallon, and then want to talk about that there's no inflation. Okay, well, what was the purpose of passing the Inflation Reduction Act, which still didn't help here? You got me here for an hour and 30 minutes, probably 2 hours if I get a lot of audience here today. But I know ScrewTube basically have permanently cut me off from the algorithm, and which is fine. You can come back. You can always go back and listen to it, to the podcast. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe, and also leave your comments. Well, basically, what would the Democrats do without their shields, without their bootlicking, butt dancing Negroes who try to help them and try to basically get Black people to believe that the Democrats has really done something for us here? So they need their Democratic shields. An article written by Antoine Seawright, and this is a familiar person. He's basically he's a writer for The Griot. He wrote an article here on April the 26th, 24, and he has a title here which which says, beware of the stories spreading misinformation about Black men being fed up with Joe Biden and the Democrats. You see, they always got these bootlicking Negroes on their payroll. They never let it go. And the article writes, and this is an opinion, of course it's an opinion. It's an opinion by one Negro Democratic shield bootlicking Negro, of course. But he starts this off at, while Black voters' frustrations are real, we can't allow that to be the excuse to let misinformation seep into the ecosystem. Our communities are the ballot box, okay? And that's where he started off. Now, notice what he doesn't tell you is that Black voters and Black people in general that goes to the poll is frustrated with Joe Biden. And this is what Roly-Poly Martin and all of these other Democrat shills don't understand. We are done playing the Democrats' game here. And he goes on to say here that the elected state and the national elected leaders, stakeholders, grassroots organizations, and party officials is who he's been talking to. He said, I spend even more hosting to participating in events in barbershops and beauty salons, churches, and community centers, engaging everyday folks across America, where I'm listening a whole lot more than talking. In other words, he claimed that he basically know what is the Black base in this country. Okay. Now, the Black base, of course, is these people, but they're not listening to people of the likes of Antoine Seawright. Okay? They're not listening to these type of guys. But he's up here trying to give himself credit about these articles and who he talked to, he claims is Black. He'd go on and write that I even written a few articles here and there about the importance of the Black vote, particularly Black men. And there you go. But an article I read the other day didn't remind me, as I've often argued, that Black voters are the most consequential voting bloc in America, or Black men are positioned to be the most critical swing vote and the 2024 election. Instead, it's just a further illustrate how quickly misinformation can spread in our community and how damaging that misinformation can be. You see, there he go. You see, he basically knows that during the 2020 election, when they tried to get Donald Trump out of office, they relied and even said that the sisterhood of black women was the black girl magic and trying to get, Jim Crow Joe Biden elected. And then you had a lot of people sending out the ballots, and through the mail. And of course, consequently, Joe Biden was elected. And he was saying at the time that black women was the bloc by themselves. And now they're recognizing that it is who that they're paying attention to. Who is going to swing it? It's the black man. This time around, it is black men who he is saying that's going to make a difference in the 2024 election here. Okay? They recognizing that now the frustration of black men has reared its ugly head. And that black men are sick and tired of the Democratic Party. You see. And they sick and tired of the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party are liars. Not to say that Republicans are even better, but you got to look at this. And now they're trying to talk to us as if we're stupid by claiming that this is disinformation and misinformation. No. We got the correct information. The Democrats haven't done a damn thing for the black community. And that's basically what the black man is saying here now. He goes on to write in his article, as I wrote back in August. Now, this is what's this Democrat shill's name? Yeah, this is Antoine Seawright still talking. As I wrote back in August, it's clear that voters of color, particularly black men, are the number one target for misinformation, disinformation, and voter suppression, and the experts tell us that it's only going to get worse in 2024. What misinformation and disinformation is he talking about? And basically, he is talking to us like we're stupid. There is no disinformation, as I said earlier. There is no misinformation. We know how the Democrats are. We know Jim Crow Joe Biden's record, starting from when he was in the House of Representatives and the Senate. There's no disinformation and misinformation about the 1994 crime bill. What are you talking about? This man has always been a racist. It's nothing of misinformation about Joe Biden. He is a racist as well. The article goes on to say here that now, before we go in any further, let me make it absolutely clear that I don't pretend to speak for all black men, and you don't, Negro, much less the entire black community. That would be more than a little insulting. Oh yeah, you insulting us, all right. Furthermore, anyone who spends even a little time in the barbershop will tell you that there's some real frustration out there and even more confusion. Ain't no confusion about us not voting for Biden. There's nothing that we can be confused about, okay? This Negro is, he's trying to impress his Democratic shield. Now, this is from the griot, and we already know Byron Allen's griot. We already know where they are, okay? It goes on to write here that, yes, thanks to President Biden and the Inflation Reduction Act, prices are starting to go down. This fool, this is a dummy here. This is a dumb here. I just told you that the people are paying $4 or $5 at the pump now, and now almost up to $6 or $7 in California per gallon. This is an ignorant fool that we're listening to here. He goes on to write here that, but let's be honest. Oh, okay. When are we going to be honest? All you need to do is go to the grocery store and you'll see the affordability crisis. Right. Prices are still high and people are struggling. See, they always have to throw in that little truth to try to get you on their side, you see. But just basically wait though. He's going to switch up on you here, which is what most Democrat shills do here. He writes here that I get that. In fact, I can identify with it because I'm pretty frustrated myself. The fact is that when Democrats hold a small majority like we do now in the Senate, Republicans can still use RCAT rules and the filibuster to block major legislation. That's exactly what they did with the president's Build Back Better plan and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and pulling your hair out of by the roots frustrating. Hmm. I don't remember that making it towards to the House. I really don't. And if it did, you know, the Republicans, of course, tried to filibuster the civil rights legislation, but that still got passed. So what's their excuse now of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and what's the excuse of the Build Batter plan? You know, Republicans tried to basically filibuster the civil rights legislation, but it still passed. The Republicans tried to repeal the health care law. It still passed, but even though that they had a filibuster. What are you talking about? And see, this is the game that they like to play here. Oh yeah, we recognize we're a Democratic president that's in office. We recognize we got a Democratic Senate. We recognize we got a Democratic House of Representatives. But the Republicans, they want to still do a filibuster. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like even if the law's still not going to pass, I just named you 2 points in history where the Republicans used the filibuster and the law still passed. You see. So what happened to our reparations commission? You see, this Antoine Seacrest, or whatever his last name is, you see, he doesn't want to talk about that. Antoine Seawright, you see, goes on to say here that some folks are frustrated, some are angry, and some are confused, and some just aren't feeling this election at all. I get that. But we can't let that be an excuse to let this kind of misinformation seep into the ecosystem. Our communities are the ballot box. Why is the Black community but the ballot box? Just basically, just let us know. I want to hear from from Antoine C. Wright. Why is it that the Black community have to be targeted as the one who has to go to the polls and vote for nothing every time there's an election? Just answer that question. Other groups don't have to go to the polls and they still get money and resources from this government. Why Black people have to go to the polls for? And so that is the real question here, right? So C. Wright talks about that Joe Biden tried to reduce, student loan debt and tried to do police reform and voting rights, whatever, all into which he failed on. Then the C. Wright guy goes on to write that the reality is that President Biden has delivered. No, he has not. Delivered what? His racist old ass to continue to make policies that hurt Black people. That's the only thing he delivered here. He has signed more than 24 executive actions to deliver $146 billion in student debt relief for 4 million Americans. Oh, who? 4 million Americans. Wow. They must have forgotten how President Biden cut undergraduate loan payments in half and helped drop monthly payment for millions of borrowers down to zero, which is a lie. He must not know that early this month, President Biden laid out a new plan that would expand that student debt relief to more than 30 million Americans. Yeah, right. Which, of course, he tried before and didn't go through. Of course, none of this would be necessary if GOP officials haven't led the charge pushing the right-wing Supreme Court to block Biden's plan to erase $400 billion of dollars in student debt, forgiving the debt of nearly over 40 million federal student loan borrowers. Isn't that delivering on student loan debt and release? You see. So we're talking about the fact that Joe Biden has done a lot for the Black community, based upon the fact that you have to include everybody into it. That it's a policy that everybody benefits. See, when it comes to Black people, it has to be something that everybody benefit to it. And this is the game that Dr. Claude Anderson talked about when they basically use these broad and ambiguous terms and words on us to make it appear as if just because you're doing something for everybody, that benefits the Black community. And this is the game that we're trying to get rid of here. It's that old same benign neglect system that they basically tried to use on us. And the new generation of Blacks are coming up and saying, we're not playing that game anymore. And they're upset about it. I want to also read another part of the article here where he talks here, the C-Right talks about the Voting Rights Act here. I'll just delve in there a little bit for you older Black people who basically also listen to my channel here as well. You're the ones saying, you always talk about these old folks, and you ain't talking about these white folks, you're talking about these old civil rights Negroes. Yes, he writes in the article here, and he's still talking to us as the audience. The C-Rights on the Grio's news article. And don't get me started about voting rights, because in August of 2021, less than a year after the election, the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the most comprehensive measure to strengthen voting rights since 1965. Every single House Republican voted against it, and others in the Senate. The GOP finally killed it with the same archaic procedural tactic the segregationists had used back in the 50s and 60s. Later than months, Democrats tried to again repackaging the initiative as the Freedom to Vote Act, but Republican senators pulled the same old trick again. I basically didn't hear about the Freedom to Vote Act. Okay. But importantly, President Biden and the Democrats are still fighting with the latest version, stuck in committee because the Republican-controlled House won't even let it come to the floor for a vote. But wait a minute, what happened when Joe Biden had a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House before the Republican changed the hand there? Why did he pass it then? He didn't even push anything in executive orders like he did for these illegal immigrants. He could have did that for a sense. It goes on to write here that still the article would have us believe that President Biden and Democrats haven't made voting rights a priority. That's not only wrong, it's dangerous because it rewards Republicans the one fight against voting rights. Well, we ain't buying it. Well, no, you are the one is still buying it, right? Listen, let me tell you something about what this man is doing. He's trying to basically say that when the Democrats had a majority of the Senate and they had a majority of the House of Representatives, that one little small filibuster stopped them from doing it. And like I said before, they tried to appeal the health care bill during the Obama administration, and that still passed with a filibuster. They tried to basically filibuster the civil rights legislation, and that still passed. You see. So this is nothing more than another more of cheap talk by these Democratic shields here. This is the reason why ScrewTube do not want me on the algorithm, because they know that because YouTube, like a platform, they knew that they would get most of the population of young folks and the population of young people, the Gen Zs or the black young millennials and the young black people. They're going to all be online. They're not dealing with the white media anymore. And so they're not even dealing no more with the Democratic Party. Okay? Not like that anymore. Yeah, you still have, some black people who still vote for the Democratic Party. But it's not as it was back in the 1960s and 70s, 80s. As we continue to basically point out in the black media, that most of your old civil rights generation is dying out. Okay. And as a result of dying out, the civil rights generation basically is no longer running the yard anymore. Perhaps a new generation has came along and decided that they are going to vote differently from their parents and their grandparents. The article from C. Wright goes on to say here, but importantly, President Biden and the Democrats are still fighting with the latest version stuck in committee because the Republican-controlled House wouldn't even let it come to the floor to vote. Still, the article would have you believe that President Biden and Democrats haven't made voting rights a priority. That's not only wrong, it's dangerous because it rewards Republicans, the one fighting against voting rights. We're not buying it because black people dealt with the civil rights bill already. You understand? We don't need to talk about voting rights over again. Black people have already dealt with voting rights. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get these illegal immigrants to get to vote and get them to be citizens so they can vote. That's what it's really about here. The article criticized for not delivering economically, but while the writer admits that under President Biden, black unemployment is at a record low, he ignores that black entrepreneurship is at a record high with new black-owned small businesses opening at fast rate in a generation. This guy continues to lie, boy. This C. Writers, boy, he's really eating these butter biscuits, boy, ain't he? You know. He's eating these butter biscuits real good. You know, Joe Biden has black businesses struggling right now, refusing to give out loans, refusing to give out grants, refusing to give out money. He's even taken billions of dollars away from black-owned businesses, and he basically decided that he is not going to help us get funded. His racist small administrator, I told you about her, basically keep black people out of getting the business loans and only doing more for the black LGBT and the Hispanic community. Last time I checked, it is not the Hispanic Small Business Administration, it is the Small Business Administration. But he got his Hispanic Small Business Administrator giving out loans to only black LGBT black people and also Latinos and whites. That's who is getting all the loans, business loans, and money from the Small Business Administration. When Trump was in office, we were getting businesses, including black business, was getting PPP loans. You see, The business basically had to just show their information, and the Small Business Administration was given those loans under President Trump. That's the reason why the black community is he's basically becoming really they're supporting him because of this. It goes on to say who helped secure roughly $100 billion in federal contract for small, disadvantaged, and black-owned businesses. And then he said Biden. Yeah, right. Who launched new efforts to aggressively combat housing discrimination and protect black-owned home values, knowing that along with education, home values are the biggest factor in building black wealth. Biden, who passed the Inflation Reduction Act and fought to expand the child tax credit and cut child poverty in half. Biden. And this is what this man is saying. Now listen to me real clearly. Biden basically is sitting on trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. Businesses are going out of business because of Biden. And not to mention, when we talk there about poor education, teachers are losing their jobs, and also the schools are being closed down under Joe Biden. He talks there about housing discrimination. Housing discrimination among black people have increased under Biden. He talked about black home ownership value and black home ownership when black home ownership under both Biden and Obama has decreased home value and economically for black people. In other words, black people are suffering under Joe Biden more than they suffered under Donald Trump. The evidence is clear that because Joe Biden hates black people and because he had policies like the 1994 crime bill that basically put millions of black men in jail throughout the states, throughout the country, Joe Biden basically had a plan to make sure that black people stay stagnant economically and socially, politically. This man, this is one son of a gun that, you know, when he basically won, who claimed that he had our back, no, he stabbed us in the back. And you will see here in this article that his alleged passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, and then he talks there about the child tax credit, which he also cut in half. This is the reason why there's the smallest tax returns that you're going to get right back this year will reduce in size because of Joe Biden and because he's using most of your tax money to fight wars in Israel and giving billions and billions of dollars to illegal immigrants and also to fight a war in Ukraine. This man has spent billions and billions of dollars and given it to other people in other nations. And yet he got people in the United States that are suffering, businesses that are closing down, and you got a high inflation rate with cars not only being repossessed, but you have a lot of car dealers say they cannot even get people to purchase cars now because they're losing their jobs under Jim Crow Joe Biden and not being able to meet their monthly payments, their monthly mortgages. This man has the worst economy. And he also crippled black wealth. And now he is basically here to try to run for re-election so that he can finish his assault on the black community. This is a wonderful game that the Democrats is playing here. It goes on to say who passed the Inflation Reduction Act and fought to expand the child tax credit and cut child poverty in half. This moron again going to have the nerve to put Biden at the end of a period. No, everything that he's mentioned here, Joe Biden had did the opposite. Joe Biden basically goes out into the street and they say, F you, Biden. He even got white folks upset with them. Just recently, they announced that hundreds and thousands of jobs have been lost and banks are going out of business because of Joe Biden. There have been banks that said that because of the credit crunch, because of Joe Biden and his economic policies, that there has been banks basically that is failing under Joe Biden's watch. There has been an economic decline, of course, if you will, in home ownership under this man. And so this is one of the most, this guy is one of the worst presidents in a generation. This basically, I'll tell you, and if they put this man back in office for another 4 years, this country is finished. And not to mention that, like I told you in other arenas, that the BRICS nations, of course, which is closing off on America, basically, they basically is saying that they can do good while Biden is in office, because all Biden is talking about is, basically talking about sanctions. And the sanctions didn't even work on Russia. Russia is still flourishing and they're growing because they are able to do trade with African countries and China and other parts of the world. Joe Biden's sanctions are not working. And so basically, Joe Biden knows that he has the worst economy as a president in the 4 years that he's been in office. And this is why the C-right is playing a dangerous game with the Black community and the Black vote. And so they're trying to say that there is misinformation and disinformation and that Black men have this mis and disinformation. No, we are very clear on who the Black vote is going to go to this time around. As I told you, because of Cornel West and other Black people, Black people are probably going to vote for Cornel West. There are going to be people voting for RFK. There might be people voting for other politicians. But at the time, we got 6 months into it, or so roughly 4 or 5 to 6 months into it. Most likely at that time, you're going to see that Donald Trump is going to at least get 46% of the Black vote when it's all over. Now, CNN had him at a poll of 20-something%, but those polls only, they only basically roughly poll about 2,000 people or whatever. So we see here Joe Biden is basically losing. He is not really somebody who the country wants. They want him to get out of office, and they want him out of office today. The article that C-right plays here is what a lot of the bootlicking Negroes play and the Democrat shills play, and that is to try to get people to think that the Black community is still with Joe Biden, and that Black men are being having disinformation. Oh, no. We know what's going on. Okay. The article goes on to then say, and I'm going to wrap this article here because it's just making me sick and regurgitate. I want to regurgitate. I don't even read in this crap. But it says here to understand these aren't just numbers and statistics we're talking about. These are people's lives. Oh, damn right. No, these are families able to afford the mortgage payment because we're fighting housing discrimination. This is the new restaurant. Wait a minute. This is the new restaurant in your neighborhood because it got a small business loan, and the family is able to pay for child care because we expand the child tax credit. This isn't a game, he writes. Now, this is the reason why people are turned off on these white and Black news media outlets. They're turned off because they really don't have a news media that tells the truth. It goes on to say here that anything to invest in the Black community. So I guess President Biden investing 1.2 trillion to repair our infrastructure with the bipartisan infrastructure law was just a figment of our imagination. I guess securing 130 billion to help our schools safely reopen, ensuring high poverty school districts and schools are protected from funding cuts, and investing 7 billions in our historically Black colleges and universities doesn't count. I guess 15 billions to replace lead water lines in poor communities doesn't count. More Black families have health insurance right now than at the point in history when we passed the first major gun safety law in nearly 30 years. Does that matter? You see, this guy is trying to talk to us like we're stupid here. You know, I don't have enough time to go into all of the things he said, but this is not stuff that helped Black people. 7 billions of historically Black colleges. Trump was giving more permanent money to the historically Black colleges where they didn't even have to come to him every year like they have to come to Biden. And so talk there about the infrastructure bill. That none of that stuff have anything to do with Black folks. You know, every time he's mentioning something is benefiting everybody. Finally, here in the article, and I won't basically bore you with much more of this foolish stuff that this man is talking about here, but he says here, and he writes, remember what life was like in January of 2021. Do you remember how bad things were at the height of the COVID pandemic? That was the America the Biden president inherited. Fast forward today, and you'll have to agree that by any measure that the turnaround has been dramatic. We made real progress over the past 3 years, and when you compare it to what we lived through from the 4 years before, it's been remarkable. A lot has been done, and of course, we still have plenty of work left to do. But let's start there. Okay, this is what this C-Right guy is saying. Okay, this is what he's saying. This guy is telling, now he knows that this stuff that he's writing in the article for the Griot, he knows that none of this stuff is true. He knows that this is a lie. None of this stuff is true, is what he's saying. Okay, our life was not better, you know, after Biden got in office. Our life began to start to get worse when he came into office, because he starts setting up policies and then giving monies to these illegal immigrants by the overflow and the masses of these people coming into Black neighborhoods. And they drowned us out of resources. And then he took the little money that we had in the tax and during our taxes, and so that he can pay for a continued war in the Middle East and in Ukraine. This man basically has done nothing but sabotage the Black community, just like Obama and Bill Clinton did before him. We lost much more wealth under Obama as we did it with Clinton, you see. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another for this time, and ScrewTube is saying that there is claims against it, but there again, I purchased all of our music here for the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. But anyway, we're going to take a music break, and we're going to get in the second half. Keep here, keep with me, because we're going to get into why we know that Trump is going to win this time around. In fact, this article is going to be talking about how Trump is basically gaining support among Black men, and they recognize this. The Democrats, of course, was like, yeah, like I said earlier, oh, the Black chicks and Black females, they're the girl. Oh, they are our voting block. That's what they were saying in 2020. And now they're saying black men are in 2024. Stay with us. You're listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. We'll be right back with the other half. Remember, you got me for 30 minutes today. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show, sponsored in part by CCPI Media and the new book that has been released, Davion and Michaela. We'll be right back. Yes, this is the Lawyer Henderson Podcast Show. I want to thank you all for listening here today. We're talking about how Donald Trump is going to defeat Joe Biden here in the 2024 election that's coming up. And I think the whole entire country will celebrate once this man is gone out of office. You see, I don't have anything about his age. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with an old president. I just want you to give a damn about the black community. I don't have a problem with you being old. And it has nothing to do with your age. It has everything to do with how your character is and how you're going to be fair to our community and stop trying to engage again and continue this benign and neglect that you've been doing on the black community for years and years and years. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. We're talking about here today about the 46% chance, the 46% increase that Donald Trump will gain in the next 6 months to be the new president that returned to office here. Because a lot of black men who they have just admitted in the black media that black men is going to be the political bloc that's going to get Joe Biden his 46%. They even got black women on this side too. And one of the things that they're going to see is that most of the people who will stay home, and while the white media is calling it more of a disinformation campaign by the Republicans here, they got to get serious, because it ain't nothing about disinformation that we're learning. We are looking at our pocketbooks. We're looking at the fact that our businesses are going under, and this is because of Joe Biden's refusal to put that money into the black community. Now, I'm going to go here because we're going to get into why Trump is going to win here in just a moment. But I wanted to talk to you about what Pew Research. You see, these white liberal newspaper and online magazines, they basically just don't want the truth to be out there, okay? In a recent article by Pew Research, it said here on May the 20th, 2024, that black voters consistently align with the Democratic Party. Yes, we did. We have. It says here in its fourth paragraph that currently 83% of black registered voters identify as or lean Democratic, while 12% are Republican or lean Republican. This share is slightly smaller than the 88% who associated with the Democratic Party in 2020. Still, the vast majority of black voters have consistently identified with the lean or lean towards the Democratic Party over the last 30 years. No problem with that at all. Similar shares of black men, 81%, and black women, 84%, are affiliated with or lean towards the Democratic Party. Roughly 8 in 10 or more black men and women have consistently identified with or leaned towards the Democratic Party since 1994. And of course, that's when Bill Clinton had won office, or in 1994. Okay, no problem with that material right so far. Then it goes down to say, although the majority of black voters across education levels are Democrats, there has been a slight decrease in affiliation with the Democratic Party. You don't say. Among those with college degrees in recent years, while 93% of black voters with college degrees identified with or leaned towards the Democratic Party in 2012. Now, this is when Obama's about to have his second term there. They're talking here. That the number has decreased to 85% in 2020 and then 79% in 2023. See, they recognize that more and more black people are leaving the Democratic Party. Okay. Overall, the article goes on to write here from Pew Research. Older voters have tended to be more Republican than younger voters in recent decades, but this is not true for black voters. While 7% of black voters 50 and older currently identify as or lean Republican, 17% of black voters under 50 are aligned with the Republican Party. That is not new. Younger black voters have tended to be more Republican than other black voters in the last 25 years. Okay. Now, when we look at the issue here of this rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, what are we seeing here? We're seeing that the black man is going to be, again, the decider here. The black man here is going to be the decider of who's going to get the White House and who, like Malcolm says, is going to go back to the doghouse. And now we get to the topic that I was trying to get to, and that is why Trump is going to win the White House again. Now, I told you that if anybody who gets over that threshold of receiving more than 10 or 15 or even 20% of the black vote, and if they can also get all the swing states, then they will be elected president. And it seems as if Donald Trump have not only did that, but Donald Trump had decided that he was going to go to the Bronx in New York. And then a month or so ago, he came here to Atlanta and met with black people in the community. And the Republicans found out, like Fox News, I didn't know that a Republican can come to the black community to talk to you niggers. Okay, well, you know now. So Donald Trump was able that month or so ago to go to Chick-fil-A that's in the hood, right over there by the colleges, the black historically colleges, Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark. Those colleges was right next to the Chick-fil-A that Donald Trump stopped at. Now, I was going to go over there, but basically I didn't get an opportunity to. But Donald Trump was basically, being cheered at, as he had to, of course, report to the Fulton County Jail as well. And he saw people in the streets, black people in the streets as well, that was basically supporting him in the majority. Now, there was a few hecklers there, of course. But he found that people were saying, wait a minute, We didn't have these illegal immigrants in our neighborhoods, is what black people were saying when Donald Trump was in office. We didn't have, you know, these illegal immigrants getting more resources and taking our reparations money and giving it away to these illegal immigrants. We didn't have none of that stuff going on here. What the hell is going on? You see, and this is the reason there why people started to turn away from Jim Crow Joe Biden. So it's nothing about misinformation or disinformation. It's the fact that people are just not rocking with the Democrats. See, the problem here is that black people begin to wake up and say that really you have to start vetting your political leaders. And they have to start giving you tangible benefits for you to go out and vote for them, because voting is a transactional process. I vote for you because you said you're going to do something for my community and your constituency. I don't vote for you just because of pride or just because the old civil rights generation had voted for you. No, 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 no. The Gen Zs or the Gen Xs or Gen Zs, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to basically vote like the old civil rights generation has done or the older generation has done. And this is the reason why the new article that I want to close out this second half of the podcast is very important here. The article writes, Trump aims to extend gains with black men in key swing states. Now remember, if you got the key swing states in the black electorate and the key swing states, if you can get black people in those electoral districts, then of course you basically pretty much had sold the deal to become the president. And this is where Donald Trump is going to get his 46%. Let's go ahead and talk about it. The article is by Josh Darcy Isaac Arsdorf. I hope I said his name right. And Marianne Levine. They write that former President Donald Trump rode through the heart of historic Black Atlanta. Just talked about this earlier. On his way to being booked at the Fulton County Jail in August. Now, this article was written on March the 8th, 2024, but bear with me here. From the motorcade, Trump saw black people lining the streets and watching from the balconies. Some were shouting and taunting or making obscene gestures, but Trump noticed that many of the people appeared to be waving or cheering, and he took it into a mean they supported him, telling advisors he was pleasantly surprised. That night, you see what happened there. They didn't know that a Republican candidate had been welcomed in the black community all along. In fact, there was Republican candidates that came into the hood in the 1800s. Remember, as I told you in other arenas, this is not the first time that we had black people run for office. We had them run during Reconstruction, But the article goes on to write that night when his mugshot was released, social media posts from some black users celebrated the image, among countless other marking him. In one post that was promoted by Trump's spokesman, a 34-year-old black TikTok users said that he would cast his first vote ever for Trump. That's our president, man, he said. Free the Trump. So when he spoke to the gala of black conservatives in Columbia, South Carolina 2 weeks ago, Trump drew a connection. A lot of people said that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against, he said, to cheers and applaud. Outside the room, Trump's remark drew condemnation for playing on stereotypes labeling black people as criminals. Biden campaign co-chair Cedric L. Richmond called it insulting. Well, by the way, did Cedric Richmond call the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden passed? Was that insulting to us? Was that not insulting to us? Anyway, Goes on to say that he called it insulting, moronic, and just plain racist. Trump's main Republican rival at the time, Nikki Haley, called it disgusting, an example of the offensiveness that's going to happen every day with him as a Republican nominee. Yeah. What's more offensive, Nikki Haley, is that you didn't know what slavery was about. Or you didn't know at the time that when you were asked the question about the slavery, you see, that was offensive there, Nikki Haley. The article goes on to write, but the clash also captured how Trump is hoping to make inroads with black voters, especially men, given then even a small improvement could be decisive in the electoral battlegrounds such as Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And what's expected to be a close election, gains with black voters could help Trump offset weaknesses with other demographics, such as the suburban women. Okay. Now, mind you, that you're seeing what they're saying here. They're saying that black men and suburban white women are going to be the key factors here. Why you just didn't say black people in general? You have me talking, black men and the suburban white women are gonna, they're gonna basically vote out for Trump. Why don't you just say the black community? Okay. Here's the thing here. You just mentioned those three states there. He said Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. These are key swing states. Okay, Trump is going to get the increase of the other three key swing states because he's already looking at the Electoral College and saying he garnered 22 or more votes from those key swing states, and then he's going to get his other 46% from the last final three key swing states. And this is what's going to put him on top to become the president again. Black men, of course, are going to decide now the 2024 election. And so the Democrats are very, very upset about it. They're nervous because how black men have been talking on the street. They are very concerned that he is going to be president again. And then he's going to get these illegal immigrants out of your neighborhoods. And then he's going to put the American people first. And so it goes on to write here that Republicans see a historic opportunity to undermine one of the most reliable Democratic constituencies by emphasizing disappointment with President Biden and this disillusionment with the political system more broadly. Some Democrats are raising alarms that even a modest increase in the trend of peeling off black support could be seismic for the outcome. Other black Democrats said that the party needs to do better by one of the majority constituency and separate from the possibility of voting for Trump. Now, remember back in 2004, I don't know, a lot of people basically don't remember, but George Bush was able to get over the 10% of the black vote. I think he got 12% or somewhere around there. And then he ended up, basically winning his reelection. For Jim Crow Joe, it really looks sad. Excuse me, let me get water here. For Jim Crow Joe, it really looks sad because Jim Crow Joe see that Donald Trump is going to get way more than 10% over with the black vote. He's going to get 46% of the black vote on election day. 46%. And that's going to be very nerve-wracking for the Democrats and their black bootlicking flunkies. To have a president for years that basically And black people were really Republicans from the outstart. Black people in the 1870s were voting Republican. They were voting. I'm gonna write a book here called, and it's gonna be the forthcoming title, if that's the word, the forthcoming title called "Black People Stop Voting for the Democrats for Nothing." That's a new book coming out, and it's going to talk there about some parts about Reconstruction in the 1870s a little bit, where you had black people voting Republican. In fact, in Wilmington, Delaware, and you had in North Carolina, where North Carolina sent 6 representatives to the House of Representatives in Wilmington, Delaware, and in North Carolina as well. And that black people at that time had voted with the Republican Party, and that black people was also gaining in more businesses at the time during Reconstruction. And what did the Democrats do? The Democrats came in with white rage and telling the Republicans and the Fusion, party that this is a white man's neighborhood. It should be ran by white people, and therefore that's when it got the Republicans on board, and they wiped out the black communities across this country. In fact, there was at least 45 black communities that were striving during Reconstruction. We talked there about Tulsa, the Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the Tulsa race riot on the Greenwood community. But you had other Greenwood communities at the time in the 1870s. You had black people, of course, who at that time thought in the 1870s thought that you were going to have your first black vice president. That was black people dancing in the streets because of that. Oh, we're going to have our first black vice president and blah, blah, blah. You had black people excited about it. And so black people were gaining power during Reconstruction in the 1870s. And then what happened? White rage came through. And basically, they got guns, and Democrats basically helped to enrage these white mobs and told black people they better get out of town by sundown. And what happened in the 1870s, and still, despite the fact that they had civil rights laws on the books in the 1860s and 70s, it took black people another 100 years to gain the right to vote in the 1960s and 70s, you see. So this is not the first time that you had a presidential run from Jesse Jackson and Barack Obama. Black people in the 1870s, was thinking about, we're going to have a first black president and first vice president, And so that's the reason why, we saw this before as black people during Reconstruction. See, this is the second phase of Reconstruction. In that book that I'm talking about writing, I also got it where I was going to lay out that there's 3 forms of Reconstruction that this country has done on them. Obama and Joe Biden has done the other 2. And it has always been a Democrat who has done this to black people. And of course, as you know, that the second phase of Reconstruction is when Obama signed the DACA law in 2008 or 2012, when he signed DACA and brought illegal immigrants and made them citizens and birthright citizens. Obama did this. And then, of course, with the influx of illegal immigrants that Dr. Claude Anderson talked about, Jim Crow Joe did that by flooding the gates with thousands of illegal immigrants here. You see, the border is wide open to allow all these people to come in here. So Donald Trump is talking about mass deportation, and that's interesting to the black community, okay? But in this article, it goes on to write here. And I would use my last 30 minutes here to talk there about certain types of things um, that is interesting as to why Joe Biden will lose this election. But I want to talk about the gaining support, of course, continually with Donald Trump gaining more black votes. Goes on here to say here in an article, you can be dissatisfied with the way black voters are treated by the Democratic Party and still never in your wildest imagination vote for Donald Trump, says Bacardi Sellers, a former South Carolina state representative. Black voters are the more sophisticated than people give us credit for. Because you have a shiny shoe doesn't mean we'll vote for you. Okay, he's talking about the time that Trump said that he had like some shoe that he was promoting or something here. It goes on to write that Biden campaign began a $25 million ad campaign in August with an economic message for focusing on black voters, emphasizing low unemployment, reduced child poverty, and student loan forgiveness. For Black History Month in February, the campaign advertised in a local black-owned newspaper and radio, which aides called the largest and earliest investment in black media. You see, you get that? They're only giving money to the black media so that they can win the black vote again. How the black media basically know that they've been used but still doesn't say anything about it. And this is the Griot and Brian Islands, who like to kiss white ass in order to get this money here, by the way. The article goes on to write that the Biden team is also doing traditional outreach, such as recent visit by Richmond to Nevada, where he attended a monthly breakfast with faith leaders and hosted a roundtable with young activists. On the same day, Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, Democrat, held a listening section with local elected and party leaders at a black-owned coffee shop in Milwaukee. Sharpton said that Biden's campaign to spend more money to advertisement and putting more out on record to draw comparison between two old white guys. They have a story to tell, he said. For the life of me, I don't know why they aren't telling it. Okay? Now, when you go and look at these quote unquote two old white guys, these are white men basically that really have different types of, or what they pretend to have different belief systems, but we know that the Democrats and Republicans are the same, okay? And this is the reason why Fox News have a problem, and they have a problem because they're no different than the Democratic Party. You see, both of these political organization wants to see the black men stay in a segmented labor market. Finally, the article goes on to talk about they need more hands in the community. But what you mean more hands? The article write that at the Black Conservative Federation Gala in Columbia, Trump comments drew laugh from the audience. He appeared on stage with Carson and Representative Brian Donalds, Republican from Florida, and Wesley Hunt, Republican of Texas. About 500 people dressed in bedazzled gowns and tuxedos for the event, posted on a black carpet beforehand with photographers snapping pictures. Trump called the room of black Republicans Joe Biden's worst nightmare and talked about how he pardoned people in the room without specifying whom, and mentioned passing the first step down. The former president compared his prosecution's 91 counts in 4 separate cases in which he accused of paying hush money to an adult film actress, mishandling classified files, and trying to overturn the 2020 election to discrimination against Black Americans. Attendees came from a range of states. Many said that they were given free tickets and heard about the event on Trump's social media site. Many in the audience said they were supportive of Trump because they believed the economy was better under the former president. They cheered what he called for the biggest deportation operation in America's history. Antoine Thomas, a police officer from North Carolina, hosts a podcast, is part of the Blexit movement, which aims to get Black people to leave the Democratic Party. A lot of Black Americans that did not vote for Trump are reconsidering their thoughts because they're looking at the pockets and the border, he said. He said he planned to be a part of the Black Voices for Trump coalition that the campaign would launch in the future. Major Hart, a 26-year-old Black commercial photographer, said he often hears Trump is a racist from people who did not support him. What's your proof to say he's a racist? Hart said. He's all about his business and getting things done. He's smart and he's tough. He's not a racist at all. Hart said he had not seen enough outreach to Black voters. They need more hands in the community, he said. Tony Brown, a 45-year-old nonprofit CEO for Fourth Liberty, North Carolina, said he wanted to see more of Trump's team too. He partially came to the gala to try to meet Trump's staff. I'm looking for outreach. We want to tell Trump that we have bigger issues, he said. James Armstrong, a Columbia area pastor who came because his wife was invited to give the opening prayer, said he is not a big Trump fan and considered himself more of a Democrat. But he called the crowd impressive, even as he said he's likely to vote for Biden. You have to look at the lesser of two evils and you pick, he said. I don't think between those two there is a lesson to evils. Anyway, I think that evil is evil, if you want to go down that route. But this is it, ladies and gentlemen. The Trump campaign is basically, they already got the vote. They already surpassed that 10% margin that Bush got in 2004. Oh, I'm telling you. And then you have RFK, who took about 9% from Joe Biden. You got Cornel West, who's taken 3 to about 5%. And a lot of people like Cornel West, vice president. I forget the Black woman's name that's running as his Black president, the vice president for him. So you got Joe Biden in major trouble. Now, that if the Electoral College doesn't cheat, by the way, because you already know that they cheat. The Democrats will cheat, the Republicans cheat, and we still think that this 2020 election basically was also rigged. But anyway, if the Democrats say that it wasn't, fine. Well, we're going to come back from our music break and we're going to wrap up the Lawyerism Podcast show. We got about a few minutes here left. Stay with us. You're listening to the Lawyerism Podcast show. The Lawyerism Podcast show is sponsored by the new film Davion Michaela, being released in November of 2024. Stay with us from our music break. We'll be right back. And we're back with the Lawyerism Podcast show. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. We're talking today about how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is in trouble in the 2024 election. That basically, if all of the polls is right, if the evidence is right, and if more black men are leaving the Democratic Party to vote for Republicans this time around in the 2024 election, they're saying in the white media that black men, of course, are the key political bloc if Joe Biden's going to win his election. And so far, we've been talking about how black men have said that the Democrats are not doing nothing for them. In fact, all of the money that basically Joe Biden has been spending, of course, have been going overseas. And of course, as he's basically has taken a lot of your tax monies. And because he is taking your tax money, he's been giving it to illegal immigrants. He's also basically has taken and given to the war in Israel. And also he has taken your money and given it to Ukraine. And so a lot of black men are saying, hey, we need money in the black community. And now, like I said, Jim Crow Joe will lose the election in 2024. There is no doubt about that. There is no question. This man has been so much of a disaster. He is a total disaster. He's an abject failure. And he is one of the worst presidents. He will go down as the worst president. You thought that George Bush was bad. Jim Crow Joe is one of the worst presidents this country has ever put in office. And now you will see that Donald Trump would get the 46% vote that he need in order to take back the White House and to get these illegal immigrants out of the black community. And also, they need to really give us our reparations. Okay? And so, if you look at this, you're going to see that there just is no point. Like I said, unless they cheat, the Democrats will lose the White House. And one of the problems with this is that the growing numbers of black people that is turning away from the Democratic Party. Okay, they're leaving the Democratic Party because they do not put their money where their mouth is. You see, the Democrats in their benign neglect policy is not going to basically do anything for their constituency, because they know every time you vote for them, you're going to vote for them anyway. So why should they do something for you? That's why they appeal to other people and then turn around and basically make policies for the people who vote for them. He's going to turn around and stab you in your back. When Joe Biden said when he allegedly won the presidency, remember he said the African American community stood up for him, and I will always have your back. But yet, as you know, the last 3.5 years, he stabbed us in the back. He's a traitor to his black constituency. And this is why black men is not being fed disinformation. That black men are becoming consciously aware of what the Democratic Party stand for. They are liars. They have basically have a history of putting black men and keeping us down. They want to keep us in a segmented labor market. They know that if black men had money, we wouldn't have to work for white men. And they know that. That's the reason why they don't want to give us an economic system. That's the reason why they have basically destroyed everything that black men have done as you look at Reconstruction and other types of projects that black men did. You see, we have to understand this, that they don't want black men to succeed in this country. There's always a way to keep us down, to have our women and children turn their backs on us. This is the strategy, that whole same divide and conquer method here. Yeah, so the divide and conquer, this is what it is about. This is their strategy. But now the black community is waking up, and you even got black women for the very first time agreeing with us that white folks are saying, oh, especially people like George Soros, who is saying, okay, black men and black women are on code this time around in 2024. So we'll just bring these illegal immigrants over and we'll give them all the money and they can basically be on top of black folks. And then we'll make them citizens and they'll have the vote and they'll continue to maintain white supremacy for us. And we're saying, no, we want these illegal immigrants out of our neighborhoods. And you can go put them in the white community. Better yet, you can put them on a train. I mean, on the airplane, and boot their asses up out of here. This is our country, and black folks built it. This is the reason why we're not voting for Jim Crow Joe this time around. You can talk about all the type of disinformation you want. Black men are not stupid, as this Antoine Seawright is trying to make us out to be, and Cedric Richmond, and Simone Sanders, and Roly-Poly Martin, and all these other Democratic shields, trying to get us to believe that we've been fed misinformation. No. We got the right information, and that is that Jim Crow Joe ain't done a damn thing for us. Taking increments of monies and funds and giving small increments of payments of our reparations money and giving it to these illegal immigrants. Jim Crow Joe lied about setting up a reparations commission, even though he knows that we don't need one. We're the only race in this country that has a legitimate grievances against the U.S. government. And that's the reason why we're not playing the Democrats' game anymore. And that's the reason why we're going to get Joe Biden the hell up out of there in 2024. 46% of the votes will go to Trump. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments. Thank you for listening.